Thanks for selling your car to Carvana. Here's your check.
Whoa, when did I get here?
What do you mean?
I swear it was just moments ago that I accepted a great offer from Carvana online. I must have time traveled to the future.
It was just moments ago. We do same-day pickup. Here's your check for that great offer.
It is the future.
It's the present and just the convenience of Carvana. Sorry to blow your mind.
It's all good. Happens all the time.
Sell your car the convenient way to
Carvana.
Pickup times may vary and fees may apply.
Everyone knows that feeling, wanting to experience more stories, but struggling to find the time. That's where Audible changes everything. With over 1 million audiobooks and Audible originals, there's a story waiting to spark anyone's imagination. Take The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, the gripping psychological thriller that's keeping listeners on the edge of their seats. Imagine unraveling its mysteries during your morning commute, or losing yourself in its twists and turns while doing household chores. That's the magic of Audible. It transforms daily routines into opportunities for thrilling discoveries. The best part? Members get access to thousands of included titles, with new content added regularly. From bestsellers to hidden gems, every genre imaginable is at their fingertips. And with one easy-to-use app, switching between favorites or discovering new passions has never been simpler. There's more to imagine when you listen. Start a free 30-day Audible trial and get your first audiobook free at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Now it's time for Inspirational Women and my guest, Roshani Chokshi, a young author, one, though, who's been writing since childhood. So I think she was born with this passion alive and words bouncing around inside of her, needing to be set free. At least that's how I envision Roshani, because her books are so descriptive, so colorful, her characters so relatable, like young Corazon in the newest book, The Spirit Glass. This is a magical read that has relevance for all ages, and Roshani joins us to share some insights. Roshani Chokshi, good morning, and thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are such an amazing young woman. I'm just in awe of your authorship, that you have so many books already, within your wide repertoire. Honestly, this is just so awesome to be just writing so much. It must be that your whole being is filled with words that you just have to get out.
That is such a beautiful description. I love that. My whole being is filled with words. I often feel like my whole being is filled with shoddy adverbs. But I'd like to think that, yes, there's something that is very frantically dedicated to telling stories and exploring things in my head.
So that being the case, because you're just in your early 30s now, and you already have over a dozen, I think you're at 16 and counting in terms of novels, that, did you start at a really young age writing?
Oh, yeah. I subjected my family members to really terrible stories and stuff, and writing on bits of computer paper, and I would staple it together and I would hand it to them. And I think it got to the point where my dad mentioned that real books have ISBN numbers and pointed it out to me in a book. And so I was just like, a string of numbers. And so I just started adding that to the beginning of my computer paper adventures. But yeah.
I love it. That in itself is just such a wonderful story, that you were just picking up anything that came your way, like adding in an ISBN number. Who would think? So, that's just so delightful. Well, here we have your most recent book, The Spirit Glass. And the cover itself is just so beautiful. The colors themselves, but just all the sort of the whimsy and the detail, and this really sweet young girl with a gecko on her shoulder, both of whom these are our central characters in The Spirit Glass.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the cover really is, I think, it captures something that's atmospheric as well about the story. It's my first book that is, in many ways, a traditional ghost story. It's very much about recognizing the secrets of the past. It's about Filipino folklore. It's got grief as well. A lot of it is a meditation on grief. And yet, I would say that the book is a lot about how recognizing what's right in front of you can save you from the things that are chasing after you.
Yes. And that is so amazing because in this time of the year when we're looking at, well, Halloween coming up, and there's just so much celebration of that. And then we go right into November and All Saints, All Souls Day, and that has become more of a celebration or acknowledgement, at least in our society, in a broader way, I think, lately. So the timing here is I think really perfect for people to build on that idea and energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that was certainly our hope. It's always a bit of a gamble when a story comes out first week of September. There's a chance that it gets lost with all the back to school stuff and things of that nature. But we've been very, very fortunate. And I'm so hopeful that the story continues to find its readers. I'm especially excited that you and I are talking since there's such a big Filipino population in Seattle. And so it's really exciting.
Yeah, rightly so. Yes, right on the mark. I work with such a large number of Filipino male and female adults, and it's just, it's exciting now that I can bring that to them, make them aware of it so they can share it with their families as well.
That is certainly my hope. With writing, and when I think about just the sheer amount of content that's out there in the world, content and art and shows and movies and everything, it just seems like sometimes there's a lot of noise. And yet the only thing that I've found really, really continues to work and stands the test of time is word of mouth. So these sort of conversations, saying to people, maybe you might be interested in it. It may be a slow growth for a book, but it's one of the very rare ways in which something truly shows that it has staying power rather than being a flash in the pan.
Yes, exactly. And I do think, though, the timing is just really ideal because of the season. And I think that this probably is going to give it a good and necessary, important boost, because the story, as you mentioned, well, the folklore is really important. I think we're really wanting that more and more in our world. And here you've really tapped into it. Was it part of your life, or did you need to do some research on this, Roshani?
Oh, yeah. So I've been very, very fortunate growing up. My father's from India, my mother's from the Philippines. So I was exposed to a lot of mythology, folklore, and history from a very, very young age. However, what makes the Spirit Glass so different for me is that it's the first time that I've written a full-length novel that draws from Filipino folklore and history. And it honestly required a lot of research. I mean, I've written the Arusha series, which was 5 books, and then the Star-Touched Queen duology, which was 2 books. And all of those books drew their inspiration from episodes in Hindu myths, and they didn't really require any research because I was very, very familiar with the source material. But the way in which the Spirit Glass is really set apart is because of colonialism. When the British Raj dominated India, it was for maybe like 98 years or so, and a lot of those ancient works of art were translated, preserved, taken out of the country, yes, but at least they were kept in one shape, as opposed to when the Spanish came to the Philippines in the 16th century, they dominated it for almost 400 years. And in that time, they decimated the local religions. They disrupted a lot of the native practices of spirituality. And with their introduction of Catholicism, it was rather brutal. And so a lot of that Filipino indigenous mythology and the folklore was lost over time. It was just not a corrupted isn't the right word, but their storytelling tradition, which was largely word of mouth and oral storytelling tradition, meant that things weren't very well preserved. And it's sort of like being handed a blanket that's beautiful but covered in holes. And so a lot of my task was about sensitively stepping around these very tender wounds left from a colonial legacy.
Mm. And you're sharing that really feels heavy on my heart. That's where it feels like there's grief that exists as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more research that I did into Filipino folklore and mythology, the more that, at least for me, I could not see any other way to write this story than as a ghost story.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That makes so much sense coming together. And so as you were growing up and with your mother and her side of the family, was that something then that was lost to them, that because it was because it had been so buried?
It's really curious. I think one of the things that makes the Philippines such a magical place is that things that might seem to be in contradiction to one another live very peacefully side by side. For example, my lalani, my Filipino grandmother, was a very, very devout Catholic when she was alive. And yet at the same time, as she went to church every Sunday, she was, again, very, very pious. But she also believed in the superstitions. She knew the words to say to ask permission for the encantos, nature spirits, for safe passage when she was walking somewhere. My cousin Bianca told me a story about how a manananggal, a very, very fearsome demonic creature, was trying to get into the house, and Lalani fought her off with something very simple. And so all she did was she took a broom and she hung it upside down at the entrance to the home. And that was to ward off evil spirits. So these practices, which someone from an outsider's point of view might call pagan, lived right alongside the practice of Catholicism. I think that's what makes the Philippines so special. So it's not as though the stories were lost, but that they took on new shapes. And yet what my task was as a storyteller was about trying to find the most common shape of a story. And it was very, very hard to pin down because of that tradition of colonialism and things melding together.
Yes. And yet, how you really persevered and found just the right amount. Maybe there was more that you couldn't use, and we'll see it some other time. But nudge, nudge, right? But here you've really used so much of that and incorporated it into such a really gripping story with this wonderful young character, Corazon. Is it Corazon? Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Lopez. And she has, and I mentioned the gecko earlier, her companion, which again is part of the folklore that how do I refer to Corazon? As a...
She's a babaylan. So, I like a shaman, essentially.
Okay. Babaylan, because that does come up within the story, and I did wonder about that, but like a shaman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You were going to expand more, perhaps, upon Corazon.
Yes, a little bit. I was just going to talk especially about Sasso. It was such a fun thing to write. In the Western imagination of witches, for example, we've got familiars, right? There's always like a black cat or a toad that accompanies a witch. And in a very similar way, at least the creative licenses I took here, the babaylans of Corazon's world have companion anitos, which are the spirits, waterfalls, they're the spirits of trees, nature spirits that take an animal shape. And the more powerful the babaylan, the more powerful the companion anito. So the fact that Corazon has no power means that her companion anito looks and is, for all intents and purposes, a polka-dotted gecko named Sasso. And when Sasso considers his own reflection, he doesn't see a gecko at all. He, in fact, sees a small, precious, and rare baby crocodile. He is convinced that he is the most apex predator of all time. He is bloodthirsty, he is ruthless, and he's itty bitty. And those sort of things, juxtapositions, I suppose, are really, really funny for me to write and just to think of.
Well, and they're delightful. And as you described it that way, rather than being in the story, listening to you, I thought, oh, this is like almost a premonition, though. If that's the reflection that he sees, this portends what can be and what likely will be as life evolves.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where, when he sees himself, so there are mirrors, and mirrors definitely factor so largely here, which is another very fascinating, interesting part of the story.
Thank you. I've always found mirrors very interesting. I mean, first of all, like, as any kid growing up, and especially as a girl, you're just getting more and more self-conscious. The amount of time I spent just sort of picking at my skin in front of a mirror, or just being like, gosh, is that really what I look like? Blah, blah, blah. No reflective surface was safe for me. But mirrors are very interesting to me, especially as how they work in an otherworldly sense. Like, we consider a lake something of a mirror. During sleepovers as a kid, I remember it would be really popular and really terrifying if one girl from the sleepover locks herself in the bathroom, lights a candle, says Bloody Mary 5 times, and looks at her reflection. Like, there's something off. We've always considered mirrors a bit of a thinning from one world to the next, and that's something that I really wanted to play with in the novel, and that's why the mirrors function as portals between one world and the next.
Yes, that is... I don't know if it should be surprising, but it was. And then it just feels natural. Like, yes, it definitely fits here. It totally makes sense. So there's just so much that, while this is written as a middle school level novel, I feel there's just so much richness here and so much story that it's for all ages. We shouldn't even think in terms of genres in that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very, very flattering to hear. I'm very honored to hear that. This thing that I love the most about children's literature, though, is that it's essentially the gift that keeps on giving. One thing that when you read something as a child, and then when you read it again as an adult, you see so much more layered meaning. And the book essentially just keeps changing shape. So, yeah, it's such an exciting tradition to be part of. And I really, really hope that it's the sort of story that readers will revisit not just once, but more than once. And hopefully they'll find something different each time they open up the pages.
Rightly so. That is so point on. That, and I'm a fan of young children's books. I totally love them because there's just so much wisdom. It's written very simply. Here, of course, for an older audience, there's just so much depth of story, which of course is required. But yes, the layers that we can come back to, and again, thinking of it in terms of time of year. Because I think, right? Because we will come back to it in that way, I feel. Yeah,
I certainly hope so. Yeah, that time of year, it's curious. Like, as we're entering spooky season, like, obviously from a merchandising standpoint, everybody's super excited about it, right? Like, all I want to do is drag my husband to Target and just load up on all the fall things. But one thing that I really love about this season, and the fact that the Spirit Glass is on shelves now, is more about the spiritual aspect, and not in a religious sense, but, for example, Halloween falls on technically All Hallows Eve, and a lot of people aren't familiar with the fact that the day after that, November 1st, is All Souls Day. There's this sense of movement from one world to the next, this idea of the worlds between us spinning, a time of the year when things are quiet, when things are cooler, the days are shorter. It's a time of reflection. It's a time when we can hear our ancestors speaking to us. I really, really love that. And I think in a lot of ways it's why I love retelling fairy tales and mythology. It is like having a direct access point to the past and seeing how the voice of the past constantly changes. That's why, to me at least, mythology and fairy tales are living things. They are not static, dusty, creepy stories. They are vividly and ferociously alive.
Oh, yeah. I I love to hear you express that, and that's why having these opportunities to have a conversation with the author to get more of the insights, and then get the book, and then come back and listen again and get further insights about what's going on, just with the whole writing process. And that may be true for like the more mature reader, not necessarily for kids, but when they come back again, they'll find that, won't they?
I hope so. I really do.
So thinking in terms of the spiritual sense, because this is, I don't think I'm revealing anything too huge here in terms of the connection that what Corazon is looking for in her novel is her love of her parents, and particularly her mother, who is just so important to her. But there's been an accident, and so here we have, that grief, the sadness, the longing that goes on, that I think is really a good subject for young kids to come to some terms with at their level, and realize that we can come through it. And I think that is something you're doing here, is letting us explore it and really come to some peace with it.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I think that's very much a goal of the book. When I started writing it, it was also from a place of grief. My husband and I, we had miscarried our first pregnancy, and the way that you mourn a dream, the way that you mourn someone that you've never met, it's a unique kind of incomplete grief. And when I consider what it's like to be a child and to be loved by your parents and to miss them, to miss that safety, that's one of your first lessons in growing up. And I think no one teaches, grief is the best teacher of all in so many ways. It teaches us how we it teaches us time, essentially, that time is oftentimes the cure-all for so many things, that things that seem painful can turn into something precious, that memories that might have felt too sharp to touch or to approach can over time soften into something that we cherish. And I think that so many of the young students and readers that I've had the opportunity to meet are going through things I could never have experienced at that age. They experienced the isolation of the pandemic. They've experienced so much climate change upheaval, political upheaval, gun violence. Mm-hmm. There is no, how do you mourn the way that your life should have been? Mm-hmm. How can you make peace with the unknown? And when grief strikes, that's what it forces you to do. It forces you to make peace with the unknown. And that's why I really needed to write this story.
And thank you. First, I am so sorry to you and your husband for your loss with the miscarriage. Thank you for sharing that, because I think it is such a loss that so many families want to just hide, that they want to not, if they acknowledge probably just silently in their hearts. But I think it's so important to speak of it, acknowledge it, because that's part of the grief and the healing that comes.
Yes, exactly. Like, saying things out loud is, we really just can't take it for granted, right? We really cannot overstate the importance of saying things out loud. It doesn't make us weaker; it makes us stronger. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you experience a loss like that, whether it's a loved one that you've known for years or someone that you loved deeply and never got the chance to meet, there is this sense, I think, of bravery. And one thing that Corazon and the characters in the book will arrive at is that I can think of nothing braver that you do in life than loving. Like, mm-hmm. the act of opening yourself up to love and be loved in return, and to love knowing that you don't know how it will look at the end of your days, whether this person will still be there, whether something will happen to them, whether something will happen to you. That's what makes love so extraordinary, especially when you're grieving.
Yes, all of that. and to know that, have that insight really, again, for me, puts a new perspective, another layer here. And I think just really helps us to treasure this book. We want to hold it tight towards our hearts and just kind of draw it in because it's so precious.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, it's so amazing. This has really taken on an entirely new life, another layer of life that I had not anticipated. And it just shows how rich stories are and what layers there are and what we learn and what we can share with them.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with that.
Yeah. So we should mention, it was saying that the book has came out early September, and here we are into September, and really getting close to this that spooky season because fall is just days away, and we kind of make that association. So the book, of course, is readily available through all of our favorite book sources. Correct?
That's correct.
So, and I'm certain, I know I've seen it on the list at the library, so we can pick it up there, but that just means that go to your favorite bookstores. I love neighborhood bookstores, and especially ones that have a large children's section. And so I'm sure it's there, and if it's not, then you can just request it by name, The Spirit Glass, and they'll get it in there really quickly for you.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. And to really find out more about you, connect and see about these other wonderful books that you've written. Again, I'm just in awe of how prolific you are with your literature, Roshani. How can people find you?
Well, you can find me online at www.roshanichokshi.com. And you can also find me on Instagram. My username is just my first and last name. You will see many photos of the cat and lots of random thoughts on writing.
So great. Good things to really find out about. But this book, the latest, The Spirit Glass, again, is just really such a wonderful book. And I kind of gave you that little nudge earlier about the work that you're doing in finding out more about the Filipino folklore. There's just so much. Can you say that you're kind of exploring another book?
Oh, I mean, I'm always exploring another book or so, but right now, I mean, I've got a little one at home, and so all I want to do is sleep.
I can appreciate that. Well, congratulations on having a little one. Oh, my goodness. And I was thinking, this is someone who is going to be this wonderful, delightful parent. And you are. Here you have this little one.
That's so sweet. Well, I certainly hope that she agrees with you as she gets older. But right now, I mean, she's just the best. She's so funny. She's giggly. She's smiley. But she will not nap unless she's being held. So it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Well, there she is already exerting her power, right? Do you read to her?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
We've been reading to her since the minute we knew that she was inside and just growing and sleeping. So we've been reading to her from day one.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? And I am such a firm believer talking about, well, it is a spirit world because this is still a developing human being. But what we say and how we feel and what we give nutritionally, but with this literature, with reading, I've heard other parents talk about, music that they would play and the influence their child once they are out of the womb and developing the kinds of things that they're interested in has a reflection.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's such a curious thing to consider how all of the stories, the music, everything provides this really magical context for life taking form. So we'll see how that will affect her as she gets older.
Yes. Oh, what a fortunate little being and the life that is ahead. And, knowing that we still with our positive, good energy and good actions can create good things in our life. We just have to act on them.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's what I feel with your writing, and I am holding the spirit glass in hand. So this is the one that is the influence right now. From here, it's so important to gather the messages and learn and grow and really find what our power is, what we can do. And I think that that's what you really are encouraging us and sharing with us to do, Roshani.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I thank you. It's I really love your work. I'm so inspired by this and, again, in awe. And I encourage everyone who's listening to pick out your own copy of The Spirit Glass. And as we talked earlier, share it, word of mouth. Let people know about it, how you've enjoyed it, and look for others as well, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was really such a joy speaking to you.
Well, you as well. It's been such fun. And again, I just think you're amazing. So,
oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now on to more cuddling and putting a little one to rest. Her nap, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's right.
Thank you greatly. That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Roshani Chokshi and Sunday Morning Magazine with David Coffey. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the podcast tab, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of sharing stories because they bring healing to our lives. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.